I get this question quite often. Why do I choose the same person, or why do I find myself, experiencing the same things over and over and over again? I can't necessarily say that I have a one all be all answer, but I do think part of why we experience certain things over and over again is because somewhere in us we are in agreement with something, and that agreement will vary depending on the individual. And sometimes we have to be willing to take a real deeper look as to why we find ourselves experiencing similar situations on a continuum. The other part to that is that sometimes I think that we haven't learned the lesson, and not necessarily the lesson from the individual or the individuals, but the lesson for myself, if that makes sense. We don't really search out ourselves and really critical think on beyond the surface level of our existence. And so we find ourselves on repeat, right? Because somewhere in us, we are in agreement with something that we're not aware of, which I also call blind spots, or there is something that we didn't get, where we didn't learn something. And so we will be on repeat until we finish that energy out. For example, let's take a relationship. You seem to choose the same male or female. They just have different names, right? For me, in my personal opinion, there is some energy that you haven't finished out. There's a lesson that you haven't learned. And so you continuously find yourself on this loop, right? And but not learning what the real issue is, because a lot of times we tend to look outward of what the issue is instead of looking inward, and not inward from a negative space, not inward from castigating yourself, not from that space, but real talk, not looking inward, because that can really be contributed to something that happened when you were 5. It can be contributed to something that happened to you when you were 10. It can be contributed to, your parents getting divorced and you were young. And so, and those experiences have shaped you indirectly and subconsciously to press upon the choices that you make when it comes to relationships. We have to really get to a space where we're not afraid to do self-assessment. It doesn't mean anything is wrong because you do self-assessment. If you really want to know why you keep choosing the way you're choosing or doing the way that you're doing, then take a deeper look within, because ultimately that's where the answer lies. Because at the end of the day, we're doing the choosing. We're making the decision. I hope that makes sense. So, a lot of times we find ourselves in the same spaces and repeating the same things is because somewhere in us, we're in agreement with something that we're not aware of. Okay, my loves, talk to you all later. Ashe.